of European countries appear to be taking a right turn. Reports are now indicating that Italian politician Giorgia Meloni is poised to lead the most right-wing government in decades since World War II.
Wow, this coming months after France's Conservative Party scored a historic win in legislative elections in June. So what?
Hello, my name is Kyle and welcome to the channel. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about Giorgia Meloni, who just became the new prime minister for Italy. She won in a landslide, and she's cool because she is a conservative, by our standards at least, and the left wants to categorize her as a far right. What does that mean? I'm going to talk to you about two videos I'm going to do a reaction to. The first one is going to be one from Piers Morgan. He addresses the whole far right thing and why the left uses that and why the people are shifting around Europe to more conservative leadership. It's obviously because of anti-woke agenda, but there's a little bit more deeper stuff than that as well. And the second one is this particular clip behind me that Ted Cruz retweeted from Greg Price. And it says here, this is Italy's new prime minister, Giorgia Meloni. I've never heard any politician so perfectly explain what we're up against and why we fight. When you watch the video, you'll quickly realize why the establishment is afraid of her. And here in America, what conservatism means simply is that we are trying to conserve the principles of a constitutional republic, that our rights come from God, they don't come from man. Whereas the left feels that the government tells you your rights and thereby those rights can be taken from you. Here in America, our founding principles came from God and the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, going back way back to the Magna Carta, where the first ideas of individual liberties were really coming to prominence. And that's what we're trying to conserve. Elsewhere around the world, it could be other things because they were founded on maybe a church or a king and a queen, those sorts of things. So conservatism outside of America may mean something differently. But ultimately, what she puts here in this clip is what conservative really should mean against what everyone really is, that we want to conserve our rights as individuals to control our own destiny. And with that, let's get into this first clip.
Let's talk a little bit about what is going on in Europe. Is Europe suddenly shifting to the right after been moving to the left for a while?
Absolutely, and there's no question that's happening. But what I think is really fascinating is how this whole shift is being categorized as a shift to the far right. Whereas if you look at this woman, Giorgia Meloni, who's become Italy's first prime minister, I wouldn't categorize her as far right at all. I would call her a fiscal conservative. In fact, bordering on moderate. So I think this is a classic tendency from the left to over-demonize anyone who is conservative and to brand them immediately far right and sort of make out this is some stigma to beat them with. The reason that she's won and the reason why you're seeing a lot of this sweeping through Scandinavia and other parts of Europe is I think that people are fed up with what they perceive to be a very ultra woke left agenda, which is not addressing their real concerns. And in particular,
yeah, so exactly. He said a lot there, but essentially he said that they want to categorize her as far right because they want to pin her politically and attack her on something that she probably is not. It's a straw man. They want to put her out there as far right and attack that and identify her with that straw man. And that's what they do. They can't defend their position, so they go off and attack us on things that we aren't really doing. In fact, a lot of times is what they're doing. But anyway, and then he goes into the fact that it's spreading in terms of conservatism or this kind of anti-woke movement across, Europe, these Scandinavian countries. And so now listen to what he says about what the real issues are going on over there in Italy.
Whether it's in Sweden or Italy or other countries in Europe, on the issue of illegal immigration. And I think that is the one issue which you can trace to all these countries which have moved to the right. There is a belief by the people of these countries that their governments have not been addressing this, what they perceive to be a very serious issue.
All right, so illegal immigration, and that's what Trump ran on. He'll mention Trump a little bit later, but essentially Trump mentioned many times, if you don't have borders, you don't have a country. And that is as simple as that. You have to have borders to keep safety, and people want to be safe and the whole nine. It goes into the fact that we have the right to live our lives the way we want to live them. But if we don't have security, we can't do that. And that's where the state comes in to protect us so we have our rights intact. that were given from God, by the way, not the ones that you gave us. All right. And that's the whole dichotomy. That's the whole paradigm, or, that whole left and right deal going on there that is so divisive. But it comes down again to individual liberties. Who has that? The person, or is it the state?
Yeah, I think it's all about, freedom and democracy. But it's, again, I can't stress how kind of weird it is to see someone like this new Italian prime minister categorized as far right. I don't think she is. I don't think you guys would think that she is far right. That makes out that she's some sort of kind of crank. She's actually espousing from what I've seen and what I've seen a lot of her speeches, I would say that she is just a conservative.
Now, on that note, I actually went out to Google and did a search and just highlighted some things here. Italy's most far right, Meloni's extreme, far right leader. And so, yeah, you're getting these types of things on the media. They're already putting it out there as that's who she is. So, yeah, Piers Morgan is square on the money there.
Who's happened to tap in to people's concerns about immigration, about crime,
about crime. Did you see what the press secretary said today about crime, about the fact that Paskey had said that that's going to be something that the Democrats are going to have a hard time dealing with crime? And she said, well, I don't think she categorized it that way. Well, she said it. It's in the quote. So they know that immigration and crime are issues that they can't deal with because their policies on those two and many others are horrible. And they do so much against the individual to allow them to live their lives. And that's why they're pushing back so hard in America and Scandinavia and all over Europe.
Fiscal responsibility, about freedom, post-pandemic, all these sort of really conservative positions. She does it in a very eloquent way. She's a great public speaker. She's kind of a bit like Donald Trump in that sense, in that she's got a way of talking which really resonates with the Italian people. And if she hasn't just won by a small margin, this has been a really big win and a seismic change. I mean, I would say that in terms of her politics, is she any further right-wing than Berlusconi? I don't think so. So this idea she's the most right-wing leader since World War II, I don't think even that stacks up. So this is a remarkable sea change in our economic stability in this country. And what that's going to do in the middle of this massive cost of living crisis, it is going to push people towards, I think, a conservative leadership. And you're going to see that, I think, in other countries in Europe. There's no question that many people perceive that the liberal left have been hijacked by a very radical, extreme, ultra woke mentality. That's what all these culture wars are about. The left will dismiss the culture wars as irrelevant. I think they're extremely relevant. It's about how people can lead their lives. It's about their personal freedoms. And I think
that's right there. It's about how people want to live their lives and their personal freedoms. That is square on. Now let's take a listen to this actual speech from Meloni a few years ago. This was in Rome. And so I'm just going to react to it as she goes through here. Check this out. He says here quickly, why is the family an enemy? Why is the family so frightening? That's her premise for this clip right here.
Perché la famiglia fa così paura? C'è una risposta unica per tutte queste domande. Perché ci definisce, perché è la nostra identità.
She says because it defines us, it defines our identity. And, that's what the state wants to do. They want to label you as a color, a sex, something, so they can pin us against each other. So again, we don't have the family to look inwardly to. We look upward to the state for everything. We don't look to our family or our community or our church for anything. We look to the government for everything. And that's not the way people want to live their lives.
Perché tutto quello che ci definisce in questo tempo è un nemico. Per chi vorrebbe che non avessimo più un'identità e che fossimo solamente schiavi, consumatori perfetti.
She mentioned here something called consumer slaves. Eventually, buy what I tell you to buy, and that's it. Be quiet, and don't cause a ruckus. Just live your life, buy our stuff, and you have no opinion because we tell you how to think, how to live your life, how to do everything from cradle to grave, and that's it. And that is not what's inside of each individual personally. And what God puts inside of each person personally, internally, is something that cannot be taken out. It's always going to be that yearning desire for freedom, for liberty. And no matter what the left thinks, they think we come from some premortal soup billions of years ago, which I don't agree with. I think we come from a creator who made us in his image so we can live for him and to glorify him. And that flies in the face of their worldview. As we have that whole dichotomy and that whole paradigm that is so different and is so radically opposed to each other, which is why they can't have family be intact, because it exemplifies the biblical principles of the society in which we were founded.
E allora è sotto attacco l'identità nazionale,
Right there, our national identity, our religious identity, I just mentioned that,
è sotto attacco l'identità religiosa, è sotto attacco l'identità di
our gender, our family, again, same
sotto
reasons.
attacco l'identità familiare. Non devo potermi definire
You can't define yourself as an Italian, a Christian, a woman, or a mother. Those are out the window. You have to do whatever they tell you to do. You have to be in some social category that changes all the time, that they don't even agree with themselves. But yet we have to adhere to that because it divides us and allows, again, us to only look to them for our sustenance and for everything because we're helpless. We're just consumer slaves. And that's what it is. It kind of reminds me of the movie Modern Times, Charlie Chaplin, the silent film, where you may have seen the clip where he's going through the grinds of the gears of the factory during the Industrial Revolution. We're just a cog in the wheel. And that's what I think they want us to be.
italiana, cristiana, donna, madre, no? Io devo essere cittadino X, genere X, genitore 1, genitore 2, devo essere un
Just a number.
Perché quando sarò solamente un numero, quando non avrò più un'identità, quando non avrò più radici, beh, allora sarò lo schiavo perfetto in balia della grande speculazione finanziaria. Il consumatore.
The perfect consumer, adhering to and doing whatever, acquiescing to the financial speculators.
Perfetto. E questa è la ragione per la quale oggi noi facciamo tanta paura.
This is what she's saying that people are so fearful for because of the reasons we just mentioned. This is why. Because the family structure, identity that's coming from a biblical principle, that is what's causing the issue because of the reasons I mentioned before.
Questa è la ragione per la quale oggi questo appuntamento fa tanta paura. Perché noi non vogliamo essere dei numeri, noi siamo qui per dire che noi non siamo dei numeri, noi difenderemo il valore della persona umana, di ogni singola persona umana, perché ognuno di noi...
Every single human being, because each of us has a unique genetic code that's unrepeatable.
ha un codice genetico
Essentially, we're made in the image of God, okay?
unico e irripetibile. E questo piaccia o no a pensare.
And like it or not, that is sacred. She's right. We'll defend it. We'll defend God, country, and family. And that's what it is. It's God, family, and country. And that is the core of civilization.
Lo difenderemo Dio, la patria e la famiglia, che fanno tanto schifo a qualcuno.
She said those things that disgust people so much, God, family, and country, but we'll do what we can to defend our freedoms.
Lo
Great.
faremo per difendere la nostra libertà, perché noi non saremo mai schiavi e semplici consumatori in balia della speculazione finanziaria. Ecco la nostra missione, ecco perché oggi sono venuta qui. Scriveva fuochi verranno.
She's quoting a guy named Chesterton here, and I didn't know who this guy was. He was back in the late 19th century, and she has a quote here that she's going to say right here. Fires will be kindled to testify. I'll go on.
Verranno attizzati per dimostrare che 2 più 2 fa 4. Spade verranno sguainate per dimostrare che le foglie sono verdi in estate. Quel tempo è arrivato, signori. Siamo pronti.
And the quote that Miss Maloney was referring to was from G.K. Chesterton. And this is him right here. He's from the late 19th century, early 20th century. He's a philosopher, a Christian poet, journalist, novelist. And so the quote actually is here. And let's talk about that because this is something that was written, a long time ago, but yet he has his fingers on the pulse of man and what he saw coming in terms of what is truth. He says here, we shall soon be in a world in which a man may be howled down for saying that 2 and 2 make 4. Well, there's a woman, for example. In which furious party cries will be raised against anybody who says that cows have horns, in which people will persecute the heresy of calling a triangle a 3-sided figure. Wow, that's incredible. And hang a man for maddening mob with the news that grass is green. And so what are your thoughts about this whole election happening with Italy and going across Scandinavia and various countries in Europe? And also here in America, we have a midterm coming up pretty soon. What are your thoughts on that? And what do you think the chances of us having a wave of conservatism across the board? Look, I don't just want a red wave. I want a conservative wave, because we know what happens when we put Republicans in office. They tend to not always do what they say they're going to do. So we want good Republicans who are conservative and have the principles that Miss Maloney just mentioned for her country, for our country. And with that, I'll see you in the next video.